Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is John Gafford. And today, man, I've got, being how I live here in Las Vegas, it's obviously water is something that is always on the top of mind with us. And today we've got an interesting guest. His name is Riggs Eckelberry. He is the CEO, that's Chief Executive Officer for those of you that don't know, and also chairman of the board for a company called Origin Clear. And essentially what we're going to talk about today on this podcast, among other things, is yes, we like to talk about the origins of Riggs. Anytime I can get a C-level executive that has done as well as he have, we want to pick his brains to try to get some clues to success and how to get you where you want to go. But also we're going to have an interesting conversation about the future of water on this planet, because he is a guy that is well-versed in these subjects. And obviously, if you're the CEO of a major company that is in the privatization of the water industry, he's a guy that knows what he's talking about. So welcome, Riggs. Happy to have you.
John, that's a very generous intro. Thank you.
So tell us, let's talk a little bit about the history of water as far as, and people, when we talk about water, what we're talking about is when you turn that tap on and you can fill a glass up and drink it, or you can take a shower. Talk to us about a little about the history of water, where we started, where we got to here.
Right. Well, as you know, late 19th century and the first part of the 20th century, right up to 1950, saw a tremendous amount of public works, right? We saw the Hoover Dam being built.
Yep.
Back east, this massive Delaware reservoir system that New York benefited. New York, for the longest time, had, New York bagels were the best bagels because of the water, right? Mm-hmm. So
pizza too.
These were big projects, and they were very lavish. And in fact, the Hoover Dam, literally, they would lose people all the time. Like people would fall into the concrete cofferdams and then disappear. It was a time when you could get a lot of that stuff done very easily, but post-war things changed. And especially we saw less and less allocation for infrastructure. And starting in 1960, the graph for operation and maintenance just rises continuously all the way into the present. In other words, that's like never quite fixing your Toyota Celica, kind of like put water into the radiator every 20 miles kind of thing. So costs for just keeping things going have continued to rise, but there's been way underfunding on critical infrastructure. And as you know, industry has only grown, population has only grown. And now we're looking at things like reshoring, where deglobalization is going to bring manufacturing back, all kinds of pressures. And not to mention the most important one these days is migration from city centers to exurbia, to rural areas that may not be able to cover the load.
I'm assuming that that's what causes things like the Flint, Michigan problem with the lead pipes and those sorts of things. I mean, they outlawed lead paint in the 60s, and now we're still drinking water that's flowing through it. Is that part of this problem?
100%. Well, here's the issue that it was actually a mistake. It was a stupid mistake made where somebody tried to save $500 on anti-corrosion chemicals, and that's it. The lead just went into everything. The water heaters, it's ruined the entire downstream distribution into the homes, which is
okay. So I just, you glance at things, and if they don't, it's like anybody else, if it doesn't affect you directly, you tend to glance. You don't necessarily dig too much. And I always thought it was a problem with the infrastructure of the pipes. That was just an additive that went accidentally through a water treatment facility and caused that?
No, to be clear, they were lead pipes, but there's technology to keep the lead from leaching into the water.
Got it.
And that chemical literally costs like $500 a day, nothing much. But because Flint was in receivership, they were in bankruptcy, they were cutting costs all along. Here's the central problem, John, is that 90% of all water on demand is by industry and agriculture.
Yeah.
And it's tended to weigh down on water rates. Do you know that water and sewage rates have inflated as much as college tuition has, which is already horrible, right? So it's literally right there with it. People don't realize it, but it's been skyrocketing, and still it does not cover the costs. We're running right now a $100 billion a year annual deficit on needed infrastructure in America. And 90% of it is the needs of industry, and we've got the solution.
Well, before we get to your solution, as it is, how much of this could be solved? I mean, obviously, if you look at anywhere online. You just Google future water rights, and we deal with this a lot in Las Vegas. We have people that are moving here, and they say things like, "You're going to run out of water in 10 years." That's what they say, because the Google said it, or somebody on Facebook said it. And I've spent a lot of time talking to the water district here, the folks that run things here and how things work. And luckily for us, Las Vegas is one of the most water conscious cities on earth. 95% of everything that comes out of the faucet goes back and gets recirculated. The only thing we lose here is irrigation through landscaping. It says that's the loss of what we're losing. And they've really tightened the belt through that in Vegas with the size of pools that can be built on new things. They've made if you have grass, they cut it back. We've lost any public green space that is not actively used as surface area for a park is going. I mean, they've been ripping it up all over town forever. They've also been utilizing new technologies. F1 is coming here in the end of November, and that is just a massive event. And they said every day they'll need 40,000 gallons to wash the track down. And sure. What they're utilizing to generate that water, there'll be no drag on our water table for that, because they're using technology they got from Dubai to integrate with the steam overflows from some of the larger casinos to capture that steam, turn it into water, and put it in the tankers to use that to wash the track. So innovation like that, those things like vertical farming, things like, what are some of the things that you're on the forefront of for making a difference?
First of all, it's wonderful that Las Vegas is doing that. They're on a par with Israel, which is also a big leader in recycling, roughly 90%. If you look at the graphs, Singapore is another leader, Malta, but these are controllable, Las Vegas, these are all controllable microcosms that can be managed. What we have, if you look at the map of out-migration from the cities, it's been like this explosion. New York, boom. Chicago, boom. Yeah. And so you have this like a problem of people moving to places where it's not easy to control, right? Yeah. Or, for example, we moved from Los Angeles to Pinellas County here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, sure. I'm a Tampa guy. There you go. Originally a Tampa guy. There you go.
Right behind me is Clearwater, Florida, and we have the Blue Jays just up the street in Dunedin.
Sure.
On their spring training. But what we're seeing in Pinellas is it's built.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put more sewage? Where are you going to put more facilities? It's not going to happen. And is the not in my backyard issue. So it's really, really hard to do build outs. And what we're also seeing, for example, North Texas, between Dallas and the Oklahoma border, is in a phenomenal land boom where housing developments are outstripping the sewage infrastructure. And that's where we come in. We're literally helping them with their self-reliant needs. So you have situations that are not controllable, like Israel, like Las Vegas, like Malta, that are they're just all over the place. Now, what is the solution? We believe in unburdening the wastewater system, meaning that if 90% of the load is into industry and agriculture, then get industry and agriculture off the grid, and then the people can be serviced. You see, we believe that the water grid should primarily service ordinary people. And it's not. Right now, there's a lot of people are being foreclosed out of the defaulting on their water bills. Those water bills are too high because of industry and agriculture being on it. Now, it's not industry and agriculture's fault. It's what they've been given. But when we give them an alternative, they love it. Why? We say, hey, listen, we can give you your own water treatment system. What are the benefits? Number one, you'll be on a contract that guarantees the water treatment will be a certain cost, and it won't explode like it has been with the municipality. Number two, you'll be able to recycle, which will give you at least 50% more water for your money, sometimes more, but that's a conservative estimate. And number three, you won't have all that pesky regulation, because when you're depending on the city, then they can say, well, we won't take your water today, or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
All of a sudden, you're able to just manage your own stuff. And as long as you're staying within permit requirements, you're free to go. So they like that. Now, the fourth thing we've done, and this is our program called Water on Demand, is made it possible for these companies to get it without capital up front. So it's water as a service, and then just continue to pay on the meter as if they were, tied up to the city, but now they're tied up to us and we're managing them. And all they got to do is just sign a contract and they get their water treated. but it's on a self-reliant, independent basis, fully managed, and people love it. I mean,
So
they're all for it.
Well, you're essentially doing exactly what the solar business, of which by taking people off the grid and privatizing their own production of electricity, you're just doing it with wastewater.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that unlike the energy companies, water districts are not resisting it. They're like delighted, like great. And I'm sure this would be true even in Vegas. Like, oh, you want to take your local Amazon warehouse off the grid? Great, go for it, right? Yeah. Because they're in a situation where they're really dealing with water scarcity, overstressed infrastructure. I just saw a headline about some utility was unable to clean out some dioxane, and that got into the water supply. Well, why did the dioxane get into the system? Why not just make that polluter do it offline and treat it properly? And that solves it for everybody. We can really get these businesses off the grid, that they have like the Solar City kind of concept, right?
Right.
In other words, we're just private utility. We're doing a private utility gig. And the good news is that the water industry is appreciative of that. They're happy to let us do that. So the whole idea of decentralization is really taking off, right? Because first of all, in built up places like many metros in the US, where are you going to put the large plants? And then in developing countries like India, they don't even have the budget for proper sewage. So again, self-help, self-contained water treatment is where it's at. As you know, we were living in Los Angeles for a long time, and LA has these long concrete rivers, right?
Yeah.
That's where Greece was shot and so forth. Like, well, that's the Army Corps of Engineer thinking. Since then, they realized, no, we don't want to just wash all the water into the ocean. We want it to permeate into the groundwater, so that they're literally breaking all these things and creating greenways that absorb the water. So what I'm saying is the earlier concept of big is beautiful, centralized is best, lots of concrete, those ideas are going away, and it's more particular, right? It's more decentralized, more self-care. And that also is much, much better from a redundancy point of view, because right now central districts are very vulnerable to somebody messing around with their computers and potentially doing something. It hasn't been a major there've been attacks, they've been caught, but you're much safer. This was the whole concept of the internet in the first place. Was DARPA, the Defense Research Agency, came up with the idea of spreading out computer resources in the event of a nuclear attack. So one node goes down, everything else does not. Well, it's the same idea, that if you just take all your water liabilities and spread them out and make the users responsible for their own, the problem takes care of itself, and you're much more robust in terms of anti-hacking and so forth. So It's a good solution, makes a lot of sense. Now, we're not the only people doing it. We were very, very early talking about this. 2016, I was preaching about it, and nobody was like, "What? Decentralization? What are you talking about?" And what happened was that the markets caught up with us. And not only that, we're not the only player in what we call water as a service, but we're unique in the space because there's other companies doing this. Don't buy your machine, just take the machine and let us provide you with the product, and you pay by the gallon.
How big is this machine?
Oh, it can be, well, here's one of the challenges, of course, the technology challenge. And we have a division with patents on miniaturized systems coming out of the big, large scale utilities down to the corner of a brewery, right? With 150 square feet kind of thing, right? And that's all you got. So we've actually done the miniaturization, and our systems are very compact, completely self-managing. In other words, everything you've got's in that box, done. Mm-hmm. All the controls, all the treatment systems, filters, you name it, it's all there. And it comes in on a semi, gets dropped in, boom, we're done. And so that's been solved by the chief engineer of the company, was a guru for decentralization 20 years ago when it was like really nothing at all. And so he's developed the concept. So that's taken care of, number one. Number two is the whole idea of water as a service, which is blossoming. For example, there's a recent unicorn that was created, which is called Gradient. And they have some MIT technology, and they're servicing the high-end users in pharma, in the chip industry, food and beverage, and energy. And those companies, for example, PepsiCo has committed to 80% recycling of all of their processed water. So there's major moves happening at the high end. We operate more at the everyday business level, the small to medium, $200,000 to $2 million kind of level, which is considered small in the water industry. And how we make it work is a great deal of standardization. Just, these are all like hotcakes. They go out like hotcakes, boom, 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 boom. And and the other thing that makes us special is we're the only people doing this that are enabling everyday investors to become involved in this royalty generating water as a service, right? It's a lot like you ever looked at oil wells, how people can invest in oil wells and get a royalty.
Sure.
It's very similar now. We're doing it for water, and we're the only people doing it. So other players that we compete against are funded by Wall Street or by venture capitalists and so forth, and regular people can invest. And one of the things that we've learned is that people like you and me, our investing opportunities are limited. Like, where do we put our money? I mean, I've got some gold ETF shares and they keep going sideways. I don't know what's going on. There's a limited number of options. Real estate's doing pretty good as long as it's not commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. And so people are looking for opportunities to get ahead of the game. And, you go farmland, Bill Gates has that, all these AI, that's been done. Everything's been done. Water is still early, and we're dedicated. We have our tagline is water is the people's asset, meaning we're dedicated to getting investors in on this early stage thing, which is just taking off, which is water tech. And that's exciting as hell.
How many of these systems have you guys installed to date?
Oh, conventionally, hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's a lot. As I say, one of our divisions has been in business for 25 years. So we have a lot installed. What's brand new is this don't pay for it up front thing, which is we just beginning on that. And for that, we have to get to these people long before, because our business is based on, you figured out your problem, you got your consulting engineer, you figure out your finance, and you put it out for bid. And then we hear about that. Well, we need to get involved with those clients long before they've solved the finance problem. Because once you fix the finance, you're like, no, I don't want to hear about it. I'm good. I took care of it. It's fine. So we got to get people who have not figured it out. And there's lots of people out there that are suffering with, they're being fined, for example, or they're being forced to truck their water to another county, as often happens with breweries. They're just suffering, but they haven't gotten to solving. And that's the next audience we want to get to. So right now, the people we're servicing are the people who are ready and able. They got cash in the barrel. They're ready to go. And that's a big business. This growing, we tripled our business last year. We're rolling. We want to go even further into the potential business that they haven't yet figured out, what do we do? And we go, hey, we talk to consulting engineers, give them the option. And now when they first talk to somebody like that, guy goes, hey, you can do this without any capital up front. So that's the big new thing, the new frontier. But we're building it on a base of very solid and growing business in the regular paid water systems, but it's all decentralized.